Hello YouTube, this is Dakota from Bowtied Media, and today we've got a brand new installment of This Week in EDM, where we go over songs that came out, well, this week in EDM. As always, there's a Spotify link down below for all the songs in easy access listening order, so let's hop into it. Starting us off in the trash category is, yes, Riot 10 and Versa with Threats. I quite simply think this is Riot 10's worst track on Monstercat. And while Versa is at least generally more looked upon well in his discography, I could barely hear any Versa on this thing, as Riot 10 seemingly took the reins for a sloppy, freeform bass rhythm tune with little musicality or creativity. This is the first Riot 10 track in a while that I've actively not wanting to finish. I listen to it and I go, no, I want to skip ahead. I don't want to finish it, even for these videos. Then we got Bassjackers with Hardcore MOFO. There was an era where crass hardcore worked well and was the forefront of all the festivals, but today in 2025, this is a decade too late to the party. This isn't enjoyable or interesting by any means. And in the bad category, we've got Egzod and Maestro Chives featuring EKE with Follow. I don't know if it's just me, but the strings for Maestro Chives don't really match the rest of the production. It almost feels like there are two songs being played at the same time, and maybe that's just because I haven't really heard psytrance and strings at the same time like this before in a song, but I just couldn't quite get over, I don't know, I just couldn't really get into this one. Then we got Jessica Audiffred and Nostalgix with Afterparty from the new Rave New World LP by Jessica Audiffred. I think this track in particular is just too gimmicky for me. The conversation in the middle sounded incredibly fake, and the supporting, production is fairly generic mainstage rave music that favors being loud over being intentional. Then we got Victoria, Nadine, and Kygo with Can't Get Enough. Way too formulaic and boring electropop here. I get that Victoria may be the primary artist of the track, but it's just boring commercial music with absolutely no spice to it. And in the meh category, we've got Subtronics featuring Flowdan with Hunter. Not super impressed with what should have been a knockout track from Subtronics and Flowdan on paper. Flowdan's flow just kind of felt off at times, and the mixing from Subtronics was really hard to get behind, especially with his seemingly now signature minimalistic sound design in the drop sections. Just, didn't work. Then we got Jauz with Detonator, a minimalistic bass house track that is really hit or miss for me depending on the context in which I'm listening to the song. Sometimes I love it for its simplicity and heavy bassline stutter, sometimes I dislike it for how boring it sounds. It's a weird mixed bag for me. Then we got Apashe with Duel of the Fates. I would have assumed that the orchestral-focused Apashe would absolutely crush a cover of the iconic Duel of the Fates from Star Wars, but in the end, the song just felt pretty off. It's almost like it changed just the wrong amount. If maybe Apashe changed less, I think it might have been stronger, or even if he went more remix style and changed it a lot more, it also might have been stronger. A bit of an oddball. Then we got Sullivan King with On and On, a fairly unique track for Sullivan King venturing into explicitly bass house territory and dropping also on Spinning Records. But this track is very straightforward with a commanding beat and vocal sample that really does just go on and on and on and on and on. Then we got Anevo with Like to Go Fast. Anevo is here with his first original track in 6 years, and while it's not the most grand comeback of tracks, it's a neat little liquid drum and bass tune that will hopefully be just the beginning of more things to come. Then we got PhaseOne and Intervals featuring Micah Martin with Divide. I haven't been a fan of the first couple singles from PhaseOne's upcoming record, and I will say that this is the best one yet, albeit not by much. Micah Martin's vocals add some solid energy to the track, while PhaseOne and Intervals play around with fairly generic melodic dubstep production. I do think, though, without that electric guitar throughout the song, it wouldn't nearly be the song it is. Then we got Stonebank with Get Heavy. Stonebank with a new hardcore track that isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, just quite generic by his own standards. He played things pretty safe and by the books, and I just don't care for this track a whole ton. Then we got Darby with Non-Stop. Quite the rigid techno cut here from Darby with a firm beat and fairly minimalistic production. I don't mind the ideas at play here, but just find the track to lack much progression in any form. Then we got Godlands with New Heights. Godlands very much playing into the modern trends of trap, albeit with a more atmospheric, pulled back midsection that gives a bit longer of a reprieve from all the action. In the end though, I think the track is just fine, works well in a live context, but doesn't have much staying power elsewhere as much. Then we got Boombox Cartel and Apar featuring MC Bin Laden with Wotutu? A wild track that tries to balance a bunch of things all at once, from Latin reggaeton beat to trap production to Portuguese rapping. It's a little too mashed up for my personal liking. Maybe the song goes crazy hard in Latin circles, but not for me. Then we got Artie and Marin with Taking Me Higher. A pretty fine commercial house track that is well-rounded and sounds clean and smooth and does what it needs to do. Nothing too crazy. And heading into the good category, we've got Graphics featuring Nula with Vital Signs. Another fairly standard drum and bass track from Graphics that's not bad by any means, just fairly safe and true to his core sound, not venturing away from it really much at all. Solid tune, but definitely could use some more variety in the future. Then we got Asher Postman with The Garden from the new Creating Space album. Christian electropop producer Asher Postman is here with his debut LP, and I think it's pretty solid. There are some more cliche tracks in here, but also some pretty epic electropop cuts. This track, Garden here, is a perfect track that represents the album as a whole, in both its tone and aesthetic. And while yes, he is a Christian producer, this album isn't overly Jesus-y, and I think most EDM fans will at least find something from the tracklist that they enjoy. Then we got Matoma featuring Sophie Loud with Indigo. Matoma has been on a bender of these really down-to-earth and more moody electropop cuts that aren't your typical EDM or even Matoma tracks, and I've actually been really enjoying them. This single, again, has some vocal chanting that works really well within the atmosphere of the track, and I actually like this new direction from Matoma. Then we got Nufori with Rhythm from My Drums. Self-categorized as Rally House, Nufori is here with what is essentially a hybrid of funk and house in terms of genre. It's got a nostalgic feel with the vocal samples and firm synth melody, and is in classic funk fashion, I should say, quite a short track that overall I did quite enjoy. Then we got Bison with Neo Human, another solid addition into the Champo ecosystem here. This track is very much in line with their emphasis on energetic electro house. Nothing crazy, but again, a great song. Then we got Sultan Shepherd with Communicate from their new EP of the same name. This title track is probably one of the strongest from the EP and really shines the brightest in the mid-sections, honestly. And while it does take some time to really get going to that final movement of this track, I think that individual movement is one of the best from the EP. It's a more typical progressive house track, but the progression is definitely super strong with this one. Then we've got Slushy with Psychosis from the new Operation Overload EP. A mixed bag of an EP, with this song Psychosis probably being my favorite of the bunch. It's a fairly simple electropop cut with a more deeper bass line, making it kind of, or pretty much lean into deep house territory more than anything. And honestly, this is the best Slushy track I think I've heard in the last couple of years. We've got Gyrofield with Akin. A mixture of IDM and atmospheric drum and bass, Gyrofield is back with another nicher listen of a track that has a ton of intentional sound design and intricate production elements. So much so that it's kind of a hard listen and hard to really appreciate all that's going on sometimes.
I'm only on a preset ting. We get never second any infringements. What it seems like these guys trying to infringe.
We've got Oppidan and Strategy with Mint. A UK-centric two-step garage tune that is, or has this constant rap vocal all over the whole thing to the point where it's actually maybe a little bit too much at some points. If we had maybe a bit more time to just have the beat, I think the vocals could have actually hit harder, but otherwise, I do really like the song. Then we've got Leotrix and Black Carl with Get Your Fixed. Something got into Leotrix with this track, and it's probably Black Carl, but man, this thing is a vibe through and through, and that's not a very typical descriptor of a Leotrix track. I definitely could have done without the double time segment, but overall thought the track was fairly unique and creative. And speaking of unique and creative, we've got Flume and JPEG Mafia featuring Raven Lene with Is It Real from the new We Live in a Society EP. This EP is wild in many aspects, and this track, Is It Real, is definitely the most normal and probably the best track of the EP, which is sad to say because JPEG is fairly absent from this track in particular, with Flume taking the helm for what could have essentially been a cut track from his debut record. Then we've got BOP and Chime with Dormant from the new Hypnotics EP by BOP. Soft drum and bass is the name of the game here, with a very light and plucky, well, drum and bass sound that really plays off Chime's most recent venture into his micro drop style. Chime cites BOP as one of his early influences, and so this collab was a big deal for him, and within this track, you can really hear the intricate sound design of Chime today and how BOP fed into that with his influences. Then we got Camoufly and Finaltia with Glory, a bright and vibrant garage house tune with an easily danceable beat and very pretty vocals all throughout. Nothing too crazy for Camoufly standards, but yet another addition into a solid discography, and maybe even a debut album on the horizon. We'll have to see. Then we got IMANU and Flux Pavilion featuring Tasha Baxter with Kintsugi from the new Entangled EP by IMANU. A fairly safe track by IMANU and Flux Pavilion standards, but this is definitely a solid track that I don't really think needed to do too much more, honestly. Tasha's vocals are strong as always, and this is one of probably my favorite tracks from this new EP, which is all very dominated by this drum and bass production. Then we got Viperactive with Snakebite. A wild mix of jungle, dubstep, and trap, as Viperactive is all over the place sonically for what is actually a fairly cohesive track in the end. There is a lot going on, and I say that in the best way possible. Viperactive really went all out with this. Then we got Eptic with Revenge from the new Darkstar EP. Eptic absolutely knocked it out of the park with this EP, and Revenge is just one of 5 bangers across this EP that absolutely, undoubtedly are Eptic through and through with his intense synth melodies and crushing bass lines. This man cooked on this EP, and I truly believe this is a must-listen record of 2025. And finally, in the standout category, we've got the Rival remix of Ambrosia, originally by Emir, from the new The Fae remixes. I love the original track, and I think I also love this remix. Turning the track into this glitchy, halftime trap-like cut was a brilliant idea itself, but also executed fantastically. I particularly love the added orchestral elements to the outro as well. Everything surrounding this EP is just gold. And our emerging artist spotlight of the week goes to Run This and Willowwind with To the Stars from the new Ultimate EP out now by Run This. You may know this artist already from his former alias of Splitter, who already dropped an incredible EP in early January, but they are now here with a new alias and new EP titled, well, Ultimate. This project is very clearly inspired by Knock 2's most recent record, also that came out earlier this year. And yeah, it has this distinctly more underground edge to the whole thing than the Knock 2 album, I would say. A lot of bass house, a lot of trap, a lot of great quality production and mixing. And that's been This Week in EDM. Let me know what you guys think of any and all songs in the comment section below. But other than that, I'm Dakota from Bowtied Media, and I'll see you guys in another